So adding a fridge slider to our tiny camper galley, a van conversion, an overlanding vehicle, it's more than just a convenience for loading and unloading groceries. It gives us horizontal workspace while we're cooking. So we can add a cutting board on the cooler, and I can even install a butcher block back here now because the cooler can slide out to open. It gives me access to more horizontal space. So I've been looking to add one of these sliders for over a year, but I've been in this paralysis through analysis phase where I'm worried about all the different types of fridges and if I'm gonna modify this galley. The first time I used this slider, my only regret was not doing this sooner. So to do this properly, we really have to start this project with the right type of sliders. We really want to go with the right hardware here. I'll include a link in my description to the exact products that I'm using. You're going to want something that's heavy duty and durable. These sliders here are rated for 250 pounds. Full cooler, full of groceries, and I can still put a big cast iron pot up on top of it. They also have a locker. This is really handy when we're riding because you can lock this inside when you're driving and lock it out when you want to use it as a table. So getting the right hardware here is key. You're also going to want to find a way to install these like I did in the vertical position. A lot of people put these in the horizontal position and they lose all of their strength. So you can do that, but that's a last resort. It's a good way to bend this hardware. So the first step here is to establish how much height we need for our sliders to clear. In my case, I have a little bit of an aluminum lip, and there's some hardware here that the galley door uses to latch. So I make a couple quick measurements here, but my preferred technique here is to mock things up. I use a block of wood, I lay it in the space, I put the fridge in. I like to kind of fool around and fit it in here than to try to build something in the garage and install it in one piece. So with things here loosely mocked up, you can actually put your cooler in place and kind of stack your plywood. Try to find your final height that the cooler is going to rest at. In my case, I discovered that it's actually going to interfere with the radius of this teardrop. The door is going to hit it when it closes. So there's a simple solution here that I'm going to do, but you might not even run into this issue. So with my cooler in, I traced a line around this back wall. We're going to cut that out and it's going to allow the cooler to slide a little bit further in. A lot of people are intimidated by this step, but it's really easy to do. I have a little roto-zip tool that I just buzz this out in a couple seconds. Some people use an oscillating tool. If you don't have fancy tools, I know people who have used a ruler and a utility knife. This is just cheap paneling, so it cuts right through. We just don't want to plunge a blade into the wall because there's bound to be some wires back there. Now on this bushwhacker, there's no studs. The first stud you're going to run into is over here, and that's been consistent in their design. If you have a little bit more experience here and you're working on a different camper, it's easy enough to frame this up like a window, even if there was a stud in there. But for our job today, it was as simple as cutting this out. With this panel removed, I just took some zip ties and cleaned up the wiring. They had things going all over the place here, so it was easy enough to run it up the side and over the top. It only took a minute. Now I'm ready to throw the fridge in and take one final measurement before we attach everything together. So this process is actually easier than it looks. And although I did mine in metal, I got some help from a friend who has a business and had some scrap pieces laying around. My original design here was with wood. So I used some storefront material, but some simple 2-inch board here, which is actually 1.5 inches, would work just fine. Now we're going to need some vertical piece here to attach this track to. Now you can take 2 pieces of wood, like 2 2x4s, and screw them together and do the same thing. But I'm going to show you here in a minute how you can use some angle iron, or in my case angle aluminum, to do a much better job. But the premise here is we have some height and we have a piece here to attach these tracks to vertically. So once you have your base with the size wood that you need for your rise, You can get this angle aluminum. It's cheap enough to ship now because it's light that you can get it on Amazon. But any hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's is gonna have this stuff. It's easy to drill, it's easy to cut. Even if you just have a hacksaw, this aluminum is soft. But what we're gonna do is attach it to the board like this. This gives us the vertical surface to attach our track into. So with our angle aluminum cut to the length of our track and we're able to attach it down on the base, you can use self-tapping screws to screw in the track to the vertical part of this. They make little sheet metal screws. You could use rivets. I drilled holes through the aluminum and used the pre-drilled holes on the track and just put little pan head bolts with nuts. I put a lock washer on there. That pan head doesn't stick out like a big piece of heavy hardware. So the track just glides back and forth and doesn't catch the head of that bolt. This only took a few minutes and now we're almost ready to install the tray. So by lifting up on these little levers that came with the track, the end piece can be completely removed. So we'll do that to give ourselves space to attach this in the vertical position, and we'll also do that to attach the pan. Now, like I said, I had a metalworking friend. He took an anodized stainless steel pan and broke this out to a perfect shape. This was handy, but it's not necessary. I was gonna do this with a simple sheet of plywood. So, you know, maybe you could find a baking pan that fits the size of your fridge. You could bend it a little bit and screw it in. That would be cheaper and a lot faster. But if we're gonna do this with plywood and establish a little base for the fridge to ride on, it's just as easy to do. I'll show you that tip now. So what you'll do here is take these two end pieces of the track, take your leftover angle aluminum, and you're just gonna bolt two pieces, one on this side and one on that side. That'll provide a sturdy support to hold the plywood. You don't want to drill in sideways on a piece of plywood. There's no strength there. So you're either going to do this with a solid piece of wood or take these two scraps and just make that simple tray that the plywood sits down on. Then if you want to make a lip to hold your fridge in, you'll be doing great. Otherwise, you could just put a strap and you're good to go. This piece is now going to slide in. We can screw the base down and we are ready to go. We're going to have a slider fridge. Man, I just wish I did this sooner. This is such a nice modification. It'll lock halfway in or it'll lock all the way in the final position. Once everything fits and your door opens and closes, you can come back and you can put some extra screws in, make sure everything is beefed up. The last thing I'm gonna do here is the electrical, but this is completely optional. You can simply plug your fridge in and plug it in the way you had it. You can open and close and just be a little careful with the cord and that works fine. If you're feeling motivated here, I'll show you what I did to make the electrical on this even nicer. So the lighting is a little rough today, so I'll put an extra video or some photos in above me so you can see what I did. But I installed an extra 12-volt outlet down here along the base of this galley. I just spliced into the outlet that was above it. I'll tag the video where I teach how to do that. That's a 2-minute job and it keeps the cord out of the way here. So with the outlet at the bottom, I now just have to do a little bit of cord management and I'll never have to worry about this again. So to make this easier, I used some 3M zip ties and I just ran this DC wire towards the back. I bound it up, I'll put a photograph in with that, and I plugged it into that outlet. I can now move this fridge back and forth with no worries of the wire catching because of how we did this. If I want to use the AC power supply, I just plug that in on top. I left enough slack to unplug it and I use it that way. I actually use this pretty rarely, just before I leave from camp. Most of the time I'm off grid and I'm using the DC wire. So by using these little wire managers, this thing couldn't be easier and our project is done. I'm ready to put some countertops in and move to the next mod. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you were able to do this job from watching this video, please shoot me a line, leave a comment, send an email. I would love to know that these videos are actually helping somebody out. Leave a comment letting me know how you did yours if you did yours differently. That's how I learn. So I'll include some links up here now from different modifications that I've done on the trailer and some of the ways that we put this stuff to use. I thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. I will see you next time.